Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Dragon Steps beaded bracelet. This is absolutely a beautiful weave, and the beaded version of this weave is actually the most stable way that you can make this bracelet. The Dragon Steps on its own can have the jump rings, these smaller jump rings in it, move around because they can't keep their position because there's nothing locking them into place. So the best way to actually make a dragon step is to make it with the beads around the outside. And this is going to hold these center jump rings in place and keep the weave in position for a very long time. I'm using a couple different kinds of beads in this. This one here has a union seed bead. I'm probably at the end of what I have, so this one's probably a limited edition. I also am using the Baroque pearl seed beads, and these are absolutely stunning. They are a little bit more expensive than regular seed beads, but just having this effect on it, it's almost like a hammered pearl effect on these beads, and it's just absolutely lovely. And again, this is another union seed bead, and they have beautiful finishes. You can use regular seed beads on these. I do recommend that you use Japanese seed beads because the Japanese seed beads are going to have a slightly larger hole. These union seed beads are Japanese made seed beads, but they have a Czechoslovakian finish on them. So they're made in Japan, sent to the Czech Republic to have the finishes added, and they're absolutely stunning. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to get this started, in the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a large jump ring. I'm going to pick up one of the beads, and then I'm going to pick up two more jump rings. And these are the smaller jump rings I just picked up. Okay, so I have that there. All right, now the second jump ring, all I'm going to do is take the jump ring, I'm going to pick up a bead, and I'm going to close this jump ring. I'm not going to show you me closing it because I've made a couple of mistakes getting this started with this video, and I have one ready so you can see. It's just a jump ring with a bead on it, okay? And this is going to get laid over top of this smaller jump ring that's sitting on the right, okay? But I'm going to actually pick that up in my hands so that we're ready to move with the next step. So you can see I have this first jump ring. It's got the two small jump rings attached to it, and then I'm going to lay this guy over top of this jump ring on the right and try and hold it in place. It's a little bit tricky to get this weave started. Okay, so I'm going to come in with another large jump ring, and because this is passing up through, it's going to hold that second jump ring with the bead in place with my first one. Okay, so I'm really linking to both. I'm linking to the first one with that, and I'm passing this up through this jump ring hole, and this is grabbing onto it. So now I'm going to place my next bead on. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, so now we got two beads on the left and one on the right. So we're going from left to right to left to right. Now we need some more small jump rings to connect to for the next rows that we want to do. So the first one is going to get attached right above this bead on the right hand side. Okay, so no fuss, no muss with that one. That's the easy one of the row. Okay, and then this next one is going to get attached to the same jump ring, but I want it to lay between these two jump rings that are already here. So I'm approaching it kind of the hard way, trying to go from the front. So what I think I'm going to do to make this easier, and this will be easier for you, is to actually go through the back, okay? Then you can see that you're positioned between these two rings, and you want to very carefully close this because this guy can slide out from between the two rings, and you really need it positioned properly. Okay, see how it's still sitting just a little to the side of this one here? So when I turn this back around, I want to make sure, see, I lost it. I want to make sure that it maintains that position, there we go, of sitting between those two rings, okay? So you can see that there. Here's the two lower rings, and here's the ring I just added. And it really needs to be sitting in between these two guys. Okay, so now I'm gonna bring in a new jump ring. This will help to hold it all in place. So I'm passing from right to left through the one I added on the right, and then the one I added on the left. I am going to pick up a bead, place it on there, and I'm closing that jump ring. Okay, now I'm gonna let this bead slide over to the right hand side because that's where it belongs. And then for our next row, we're gonna be working down on this jump ring just below it. Okay, so not on the new jump ring, but on the jump ring just below it. We're gonna be adding our smaller jump rings again. So again, the first one just goes above the bead. Easy, easy. Okay, and while I have that closing, see I'm allowing it to flip to the back side so I can easily get to this position between these two beads without having to go in from the front and wriggle around with it a lot, okay? So see how I'm passing through right here between these two beads, or between those two jump rings, excuse me, between those two small jump rings. And I'm trying to close it where it doesn't lose its position between those two rings. Okay, I'm letting it turn back around. Remember this, remember that this this bead belongs over on this right hand side, okay? And I'm gonna let that come down. This is kind of reminiscent of the first, the second jump ring that we ever added, how we're letting that come down over top of this. Okay, so when your bead gets out of position on one of these, just remember that that easy one is going to come down over top, and actually that's the not easy one, sorry, that the not easy one is just folding back down over top, and then we have the other one over here, which is just sitting above the bead. Okay, do a couple more rows of that. So this time we're coming from the right to the left again, but you see that's where my bead is this time, so it's a little bit different position. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up a bead, and this bead's going to sit on the left hand side. Okay, if you get confused as you're going along, because I know you're flipping this from the front to the back, notice how in the first row this sits behind the second row, the larger, I'm looking at the larger ring here, sits behind the third row sits behind the fourth row, so you're stacking on top. Okay, so that's how you can tell if you lose your place whether you are progressing in the right direction. Okay, so now we're working over here again on this guy. So we're never working on the new one. We're always working on the one that's just one step down from it. Okay, so we have that there. And then I'm going to, oh, I should have flipped this over already. Sorry about that. Okay, flip it to back behind it. And once again, I'm going through the same ring this guy just went through, but I'm trying to maintain my location between these two beads, these two jump rings here. Okay. So you'll notice I'm holding my jump ring weird over on this right side. So I'm gonna pull it off and get it resituated better before I go to close it, okay? Maintaining a good and now it did lose its position, so I'm just trying to pull this guy back over, and you're gonna have to do this when you do this. Let me try this. This usually works. There we go. Okay. So see how now he's back in between these two. I'm gonna flip this bead back up. See how it's gonna lay again. It's losing its position again. This is a fiddly one, but boy, it sure is pretty in the end, so it is worth the pain. Okay, let me try this again. If anybody comes up with a trick on getting this little ring to keep its position, you let me know. I'm always learning something from my students, so I would not be surprised to see somebody come up with something. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. And you can start to already see this little dance in the middle, this little two to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. Okay. And now I'm going to add our large jump ring with a bead to lock this in position. Okay. Through there, and a bead, and we're going to close. Okay, I'm gonna do one more row, just one more. So again, we're on the second jump ring down. We're gonna do this real easy connection on the outside, no problem. That's the easy one each row. Now we're gonna get to the hard one. Okay, so again, it's the second jump ring down. Get it closed. Pull it back over to the right on this row. And let that fold back over top of it, okay? So that kind of starts holding it in place once you get that folded back over top of it. We'll take our big jump ring, pass through, okay? Add a bead, and we're ready for more. So I think that's enough to show you for you to get the hang of it. This is kind of an intermediate weave. But I think you can see now as we've started to add beads that the beads are really stabilizing this weave and allowing this back and forth motion to be very locked in the center of this weave. They're really teeny tiny. I actually really particularly like the the red one that I've done, because those little tiny jump rings really pop out from the darker color red. So it becomes apparent just how tiny the weave is, but how much detail sits in there. So if you really want a weave that's showing off some hand craftsmanship, this one really does it, and particularly when you have a darker background with a lighter, small jump ring sitting in front of it. But I wanted to show you with these Baroque beads because I have not found a use for them before, and they look absolutely lovely in this bracelet. So I'm gonna pause the video here. I want you to keep going with your length of your bracelet, and then when we come back, I'm gonna show you how to do the ends. Okay, so I haven't quite finished the length, but I want to show you how to finish this bracelet, because this is actually fairly easy to do either end of this with. And what I'm going to do is take one of my larger jump rings, okay? And you'll notice that I've already added the smaller jump rings, the one on the outside here, and the one that needs to sit in between the two smaller rings. Okay, so I'm going to pass this through both of these jump rings. And then I'm going to close it. I'm not going to add a bead to it this time. Doesn't need one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now I'm going to flip it over to the back side. Now I'm going to take another ring of the same exact size. I'm going to pass it through these same two rings. Okay, so you can see I'm going to have two of the same large rings sitting parallel to one another. One is on the front and one is on the back. Okay, and that's what's going to create the finish to this. Now from here, you could see this would have been a bias, but we're kind of sticking a ring now right in the center of it. So from here, all you need to do is either, you're going to either add two small jump rings and add a larger ring to the end to attach to. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So use two to attach that ring. Just makes it more secure to use two. Or what I'm going to show you on this end is attaching the lobster claw, which will have one. You don't have to use a lobster claw. You can use any clasp that's appropriate for the end of a bracelet whose color is going to blend in nicely. Okay, but that's what will come in the kit. Okay, so we just added that there, and see how nicely the end is. So same thing on the other side. You're going to add your smaller jump ring. So this would have been the starting end. You'll add your smaller jump ring here, smaller jump ring here, add a large jump ring to the front, flip it over to the back, add the second large jump ring, and then you're going to use a larger, thicker ring out here for the lobster clasp to attach to, okay? But as I said, if you have toggle clasps or something like that that you prefer to use, you certainly can. But you can see again how you have the one on the front, one on the back, and then the two small jump rings to go to the finish. So that's all there is to this. I hope you enjoyed this video class, and I hope you'll join me again next time. Thanks so much.